approved and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't understand why this is an issue.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
It's 9 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Monday, August 4th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Coming up this hour, Jared Polis has some remarks around changes that are being made at the EPA. Bill, let's tee that up and play it real quick. Here's Jared Polis.
The Environmental Protection Agency made the reckless and unnecessary decision to reject decades of data and move our climate efforts backwards. The EPA made the decision to repeal the science-based standard that acknowledges the simple reality that greenhouse gas pollution is harmful to our health and the environment, and it puts Colorado communities at risk. We're already seeing this increased heat exposure, hail and fire risk, which lead to homeowners insurance skyrocketing. Climate change is here, and it's already affecting us. In fact, the three largest and most destructive fires in our state's history all took place in the last few years. The cost of climate change is hitting Coloradans' pocketbooks, and yes, our health, including severe weather that results in costly damage to crops and homes and heat exposure for individuals. In 2024 alone, the U.S. faced $27 billion in disasters linked to weather and climate. And that's why the EPA's denial of science and reality is particularly bizarre. But we in Colorado will continue our work to save Coloradans money, protect clean air, lead with data and science first, to help protect the property of Coloradans and our iconic wild spaces. Together we can build a cleaner, safer Colorado where everyone can thrive.
Jared Polis, the governor of Colorado, making some pretty bold claims about climate change. The hail that's destroying your roofs as the result of climate change, and the EPA, by making some changes, is just going to make things worse. More wildfires, more hail, everything is going to get worse, all because of Donald Trump. Is he right? Is he true? Coming up after News and Comment with Blake Olson, we're going to talk with the former chief of staff of the EPA about some of the changes that are being made. Get her insight on this. Not going to want to miss the conversation. Now is time, though, for News and Comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, News and Comment.
Good morning, Monday, 71 and sunny outside, expecting a high of 95 today. This portion of the news sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story, NORAD, says fighter jets intercepted a civilian aircraft flying above DJT's golf club in New Jersey over the weekend. The jet scrambled to the restricted airspace above the property in Bedminster Sunday, adding that flares were used. Trump was there at the time, and the aircraft was escorted out. After 7 or 8 days or whatever, over a week of the Sydney Sweeney story, where the lefties freaked out, lost their minds over an attractive woman wearing jeans in a commercial for an American Eagle ad, DJT posting this morning, Sydney Sweeney, a registered Republican, has the hottest ad out there. Go get him, Sydney. Then he said on the other side of the ledger, Jaguar did a stupid and seriously woke ad that is a disaster. He goes on to rip Taylor Swift and Bud Light. And then this was Sunday when he found out that Sweeney is a Republican.
Any thoughts on that? That who was? Sydney Sweeney. She's like a very hot actress right now. She's a registered Republican? Yes. Oh, now I love her ad. Is that right? Is Sydney Sweeney? You'd be surprised at how many people are Republicans. That's what I wouldn't have known, but I'm glad you told me that. If Sydney Sweeney is a registered Republican, I think her ad is fantastic. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
If you could, it was kind of low, the audio, but he just found out in that scrum, that media scrum on Sunday, and had that to say, and then he posted that on Truth Social this morning. Congresswoman
Classic
Nancy
Trump. Classic.
Yes, absolutely. So
Hilarious.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
Has a good time with it, doesn't worry about anyone's feelings, and just tells the truth. It was awesome. Love it.
It reminds me of when Ronald Reagan was going in for surgery and upon being shot and said to the doctors, "I sure hope you're all Republicans." So
that's right.
A little bit of levity.
Also. That's right. You have to have a sense of humor. Both of them, Reagan did, and so does Trump. I don't know if the left does, but I love it. Congresswoman Nancy Mace is launching a bid for South Carolina governor. She made it official during a release on her personal website last night. The man accused of killing 4 people at a Montana bar early Friday morning is still on the run. Police in southwest Montana are urging people to remain on high alert. Montana Attorney General Austin Knudsen says hundreds of people are helping with the search. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff heads to Russia this week as the White House tries to get a ceasefire deal done with Ukraine. Last week, 47 gave Putin a 10-day window to reach a deal that the deadline will expire on Friday. One of the stars of WKRP in Cincinnati, you know what? I forgot to put a little Crocky Crockett in there. Shanae. Let's hear from Shanae because Texas, all these lefties are leaving town, going to Chicago because they're redistricting. And Shanae, she knows she may lose her job.
Because the Supreme Court has paved the way for half the stuff that we see that's going on. Listen, Donald Trump is a piece of okay, we know that. Yes.
Yeah, she said it.
He is.
Is he?
But in a functioning democracy, he still would not be able to get away with this. But he's been able to get away with this because the House Republicans are complicit. He's been able to get away with this because Senate Republicans are complicit. But most importantly, the courts, especially the Supreme Court, is complicit. And so I think one of the places that we have to start is we are absolutely, they are the highest court in the land, and they have no ethics guardrails. Now you go down to the lower courts, and they do. How much sense does that make?
All right, let's talk about Lonnie Anderson. The great Lonnie Anderson, she passed away 2 days before her 80th birthday. She passed away on Sunday. Her character was always trying to keep Herb Tarlick, the sales guy in the radio station, from harassing her. Dr. Johnny Fever, the DJ, was there to try to help in this episode.
Listen, you want me to talk to him?
Oh, it wouldn't do any good.
Well, where is he?
Oh, in there, probably going through Mr. Carlson's desk.
I'll speak to him.
I'd do anything if you could get him off my back.
And Dr. Johnny Fever almost passes out when she said that. So Lonnie Anderson passes away at the age of 79. Rockies lose to the Pirates on Sunday, 9-5. Blue Jays in town tonight, 6:40. Broncos training camp continues. 57 in Castle Pines, 59 in Wheat Ridge, 61 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue on Monday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Good morning, Denver. Your 710 5-day forecast looks to dry out for a while. Today, we'll enjoy mostly sunny skies with highs approaching the mid-90s. Going to get a breezy southeast wind this afternoon and stick around for tonight. Lows in the mid-60s, skies clear. Tuesday through Friday, middle 90s with some upper 90s potentially towards the end of the week. Sunny skies, lows upper 60s. Weather brought to you by L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. For quick, trustworthy, dependable service, call 720-851-1691 or visit them online at bestdenverhvac.com. You'll be comfortable with L&L. Meteorologist Don Watzel in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Trump's EPA to the endangerment findings has to do with greenhouse gases. Well, Jared Polis, the sky is falling. Literally, you're going to get more hail, more wildfires, and everything is going to be a bigger and bigger disaster, all because of global warming, climate change, and greenhouse gases. Let's hear this audio, and then we're going to hear from Mandy Gunasekera, who is the former chief of staff of the EPA, right after this. But let's hear Jared Polis first.
Today, the Environmental Protection Agency made the
Good morning.
Unnecessary decision to reject decades of data and move our climate efforts backwards. The EPA made the decision to repeal the science-based standard that acknowledges the simple reality that greenhouse gas pollution is harmful to our health and the environment, and it puts Colorado communities at risk. We're already seeing this increased heat exposure, hail and fire risk, which lead to homeowners insurance skyrocketing. Climate change is here, and frankly, it's already affecting us. In fact, the three largest and most destructive fires in our state's history all took place in the last few years. The cost of climate change is hitting Coloradans' pocketbooks, and yes, our health, including severe weather that results in costly damage to crops and homes and heat exposure for individuals. In 2024 alone, the U.S. faced $27 billion in disasters linked to weather and climate. And that's why the EPA's denial of science and reality is particularly bizarre. But we in Colorado will continue our work to save Coloradans money, protect clean air, lead with data and science first, to help protect the property of Coloradans and our iconic wild spaces. Together we can build a cleaner, safer Colorado where everyone can thrive.
Never mind that Governor Jared Polis just admitted that the three biggest wildfires happened under his watch. We're going to blame Donald Trump, and it's the EPA's fault with regards to global warming and greenhouse gases. Well, to provide a response to Governor Jared Polis is Mandy Gunasekera. Mandy is the former EPA chief of staff. I can't think of anyone better to provide some actual reality on this. And she's an environmental attorney. Mandy, thank you for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show this morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Great to be with y'all.
All right, so is the governor right? Is the changes to the EPA and the finding and greenhouse gases going to result in more doom and gloom for American citizens?
No, but I'm not surprised that that's what he is saying. I mean, those are the same tired talking points we've been hearing from the Democrat Party on climate change for the past few decades. And it's their attempts to undermine the ability to engage in legitimate, credible debate, try to shut it down when it comes to the full picture of climate change, what we know, what we don't, and then how that should translate to actual policies and the cost and liability that go along with that. They don't want to have that conversation. They want to shut it down with their Chicken Little analysis, and that's the latest that you're seeing from the governor of Colorado. And it's interesting, too. I hear this a lot. He's pointing to the cost of natural disasters. It is true that the cost of natural disasters, its cost impact, has gone up, but that is a reflection of the fact that the cost of everything, whether it's building supplies, materials, housing, buildings, it's all gone up significantly. So when natural disasters like fires, which are a part of a healthy forest ecosystem, actually occur, and there's ways to control it, which Colorado's embraced some, but not other approaches, when that actually happens, the costs are going to be much more than they were years ago. But that is not the point. Those can be addressed by local policies. This bigger picture, this framing of the endangerment finding in greenhouse gases, it's been a tool that the Democrat Party and their left-wing allies have used to try to control everything from what we eat, what we drive, to what businesses can exist and which ones cannot, which flies in the face of what the endangerment finding is supposed to be, and then also it flies in the face of the full picture of climate change and how that should translate to thoughtful, effective policy.
That's Mandy Gunasekara. She's the former chief of staff of the EPA. She's an environmental attorney. She's responding to Jared Polis, who's saying that the sky is falling as a result of changes happening at the EPA. Now, this finding that the EPA used, especially under kind of the Obama and Biden administrations, from my perspective, seemed like a kind of executive institutional blank check, similar to what the U.S. Supreme Court was trying to address in the Chevron's deference case, that you have these executive institutions that are given wide berth by the legislature to pretty much put into law any rule that they want to, and then burden businesses. And it seemed like this is what the Obama administration did with this EPA finding, and it was justified for the Trump administration to repeal it. Your thoughts, Mandy?
Yeah, the endangerment finding was the result of a manipulated political process, and it's been heralded as this comprehensive scientific review. A comprehensive scientific review of the state of climate change was just released last week. This was the report that was released alongside the administrator's decision, a proposed rescission of the endangerment finding that the Department of Energy actually put out. I encourage anyone who is interested in what is the latest and greatest understanding with regard to climate change and its impact on the economy to take a look at that DOE report, which was put out by 6 extremely experienced, incredible scientists that have been at the forefront of all of these issues for quite some time. The endangerment finding, I think you say it really, really well. It was a blank check. It was a regulatory blank check for Democrat administrations to impose massive costs in the form of regulations that would not otherwise be justifiable, but for the way that they manipulated cost-benefit analyses to the point where it was, well, if you don't do this, then the world is going to end, or all these lives are going to be lost, or things like floods, hurricanes, rainfall are going to increase significantly. All of these claims that as a matter of fact have been completely disproven since the time that that finding was put into place.
That's Mandy Gunasekara. She's the chief of staff to the EPA. Now, is there any merit to the idea that greenhouse gases are changing the climate? The climate is getting worse. Jared Polis pointing out 3 of the worst fires in Colorado history happened recently. And I'm torn on this because some of the claims made by the radical environmentalists, like Florida is going to be underwater, were being made 45 years ago. Clearly, Florida is not underwater. But Colorado used to have a big brown cloud that sat over it. That's kind of dissipated. I'd say it really has dissipated a lot. Jared Polis saying that we've had 3 bad wildfires in the last few years. Is there any argument at all that greenhouse gases are changing the climate and we should seek to reduce them?
There's the argument that greenhouse gases result in a change, are part of a changing climate, but what we found out is that those changes are mild and manageable. And with regard to the brown cloud reference, that's a totally different issue. That's air quality versus climate change, which the left will often conflate the two. They'll talk about climate change and then they'll talk about air quality or water quality issues. From an EPA perspective, those are totally different issues. The reason that the brown smog clouds have dissipated significantly is because of a program called the National Ambient Air Quality Standards Program that controls 6 main pollutants that they've done quite successfully since 1970. We've actually reduced those as a country by close to 80%, which is why the presence of smog-like clouds outside of certain geographical bowls on the West Coast, that's why why those have largely dissipated. When we're talking about greenhouse gases, you're talking about a totally separate program that has actually overtaken the time and resources that's been devoted to those fundamental issues that we know how to do and do well, which is cleaning up the air, water, and addressing legacy pollution, that is climate change. So yes, greenhouse gases have an effect. We know that, and no one is saying otherwise. What they're ultimately saying is we don't fully have an understanding of what is humans' impact to that with regards to natural variability, to the fact that we have data limits, and that a lot of the policy decisions are based off of models that have been totally disproven for many, many years at this point. The point is that relying on that to justify regulations that can bankrupt entire industries and really suppress economic development, that is not the best path to go to ensure we have both a healthy climate, we have healthy people, as well as a healthy and growing economy that breathes a lot of opportunity into both of those aspects.
That's Mandy Gunasek. Jeff, let me jump in here just for a sec. She's former EPA Chief of Staff. Just a moment ago, Mandy, you talked about some of the newer data coming out, and you said the conclusions show the changes are mild and manageable. How are we defining both mild and manageable in your explanation there? How are those defined? What do we say as far as mild and manageable?
Well, for example, humans have been living in climates that are not conducive to human life for a long time. With the building of modern buildings, with climate control, internal air conditioning, heat, those sorts of things. It's why you're able to live in the mountains in Colorado during the dead of winter. Those are some of the manageable aspects. Since the existence of time, have been adapting to a changing climate. I say mild because if you look at the United Nations latest reports that have come out, it's every few years they put out a report. It's called the assessment report. The 2009 endangerment finding was based off of AR4. The latest one is AR6, Assessment Report 6. And what you'll see from a lot of the scientific conclusions, if you want to call them that, you have to be careful calling them that, but it's that they are walking back a lot of the definitive, more extreme rhetoric from AR4 that was used in 2009 to justify the U.S. endangerment finding. They're walking a lot of it back. For example, precipitation, there actually hasn't been massive increases when it comes to floods, droughts, tornadoes, hurricanes, landfalling hurricanes. There hasn't been any noted increase in the frequency or intensity, a lot of terms that you often use. So all of that collectively, there's a lot of aspects to it, but all of that collectively is, while a better, more accurate depiction of our changing climate is something that is largely mild in the big picture and something that we as humans have adapted to for a very long time. And it doesn't require the types of policies that we've seen being pushed from the left that require or that are built off of a wholesale change of what types of energy sources we use, what types of cars are available, whether or not Americans are encouraged or not to eat meat. All of those sorts of things have nothing to do with the bigger picture and the reality that a lot of scientists, many are starting to speak up about the mischaracterization of their work in the past few years, that again, mild and manageable is a better depiction of the way that our changing climate has actually panned out.
Now, in your opinion, Mandy Gunasek, former EPA Chief of Staff, does that mild and manageable mean things like, what we've seen on our coasts, both on California, wildfires, also on the East Coast and Florida based on hurricanes? There are certain areas in which, based on hurricanes, flooding, and wildfire, you can't rewrite insurance policies. Should we expect that to be part of our manageable or managing of this issue? That's basically the function of the economy right now. We're seeing places in Florida where they've got almost zero home insurance policies being able to be written, in part because of hurricane damage. Yeah, part of that is the explosion based on cost, which is part of the time value of money. But in other words, but the insurance companies are also seeing greater losses based on the intensity of the hurricanes. Is that part of the manageable part of this, that we should expect things like home insurance and other things to continue to rise?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems of home insurance and the insurance market itself is the influence of the federal flood insurance program. And these are totally separate conversations that you could have, but tying it back to the fact that natural disasters have occurred since the beginning of time. And there are areas that are more prone. We know that these areas that are more prone to landfall hurricanes, but you still have policies that incentivize these areas to continue to be built up. Go to California and you can see that there are houses literally built on the edges of these cliffs that are, they fluctuate and then they erode over time. This has always happened, yet people build out there. So there are very serious complications with regards to the implementation of insurance policies, but those could be handled, by a better, more thoughtful approach, and perhaps not incentivizing people to build massive, expensive property up in areas that are prone to these natural disasters.
Well, Mandy, we have it right here in Colorado. We have massive houses being built inside of the forests, and part of it is that wonderful woodland seclusion. And then those people are super surprised when their house burns down. Really surprised.
Yeah, well, and it's, again, back to an earlier point, forest fires are part of a healthy forest ecosystem. It's necessary for the rejuvenation, and something that happens quite often, over the course of time. There are ways to mitigate it, and I would say Colorado has done a much better job than California, for example, but there are ways that you can go in and you can limit the intensity of those fires by virtue of getting rid of dead trees, responsible forest management, and making sure that you engage in prescribed fires, something that has been complicated in years past by virtue of permits, air quality permits, and preventing prescribed fires from actually being done during seasons. It makes sense because of other air quality concerns or issues. So it's not always easy. I would say I would commend Colorado for doing a better job, again, than what we've seen in California. But the other piece of it too is the utilities. Utilities, instead of investing and maintaining the latest and greatest technologies for their existing infrastructure, they've shifted a lot of those funds towards investing in renewable energy, and they've ignored some important infrastructure like power line maintenance and things along those lines that can also increase fires. So back to my manageable point, a lot of these causes are extremely manageable, coupled with responsible forest management. People can build their homes in densely forest areas, but if they want to limit being overly exposed to forest fires that are going to happen, that needs to be coupled with policies that allow for responsible prescribed fires to mitigate the development of fuel or dead trees and brush. The thinning out of that without being crippled by unnecessary litigation or permits, and the utilities being able to build out infrastructure that at times has caused forest fires, being able to build out and maintain it based off of technical realities, not ideological preferences for certain technologies over others.
Oh, Mandy Gunasekara, former EPA Chief of Staff. There you go, talking about personal responsibility again, because everybody here listening to the Jeff and Bill Show has seen those interviews in southern states after they have a flood, and they talk to the guy who still has just one shoe and most of his shirt and a hat, and he's standing there and he's really surprised that his house flooded the same time that it flooded as last year and the year before and the year before. But every 12 months, he's just as surprised that the water comes and floods his house yet again. Personal responsibility, and not something that maybe the average American is such a fan of. Just saying.
But it's a fundamental aspect of the American experience, right?
Yes, it is.
She's the former chief of staff of the EPA. Last question for you, Mandy. You've been very kind with your time. Jared Polis wants Colorado to be fully renewable by 2040. All of its power generated from renewable sources. A lot of people don't understand that's going to result in a fundamental transformation of the eastern plains of Colorado with solar, with windmills, and then they're going to build giant transmission lines from eastern Colorado all the way back into Denver. There's a big fight with Excel in Elbert County now over this. These mandates, particularly what Jared Polis has acquired, totally green energy by 2040, 15 years from now, is going to require a lot of greenhouse emissions in order to get there. Talk real quick, just briefly, about these clean energy mandates and the impact they have on communities.
Yeah, well, they're totally unrealistic, and it's based off of a political preference, not the technical realities or how that's going to translate into a less reliable grid and more expensive energy for Colorado citizens. And also, every energy source has its trade-offs. You can't build a solar panel or a windmill without extracting critical minerals. Most of that, unfortunately, is done overseas in mines controlled by China. That doesn't have great environmental standards, and they don't have great humanitarian and worker safety standards. And so this whole push to arbitrary timelines to shift the grid to renewable energy, it's extremely problematic. Wind and solar cannot provide what is most important when it comes to running an energy grid, that is baseload power. This comes from coal, oil, and natural gas. Colorado is very good at extracting natural gas and delivering it to market in a safe, efficient manner. So embracing that would actually lead to less emissions overall without having to sacrifice Coloradans being able to turn the lights on and them actually work when they need it most and being able to afford their monthly electricity bills.
That's Mandy Gunasekara. She's the former chief of staff of the EPA. She's an environmental attorney. I strongly recommend you follow her on X at Mississippi MG. Mississippi MG. Learn more about her great thinking. Appreciate your time today, Mandy.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you
for
so
the time.
much.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Great to be with y'all.
All right, let's talk advanced hair restoration, folks. Summer's the time to feel and look your best, but I'm not talking about your abs or tan. Guys, I'm talking about your hair. Restore that bald spot, reverse your receding hairline, and add volume to thinning during Advanced Hair's once yearly summer savings event. Advanced Hair's simple one-day treatment begins to regrow your own natural hair the very next day, and they guarantee your new hair will grow for life. There's absolutely no one I trust more than Dr. Tanya Paulson and her team at Advanced Hair. Take advantage of your flexible summer calendar and get the most hair for your dollar. Advanced Hair Summer Sales Event is on for a limited time, so get the details and schedule your free consultation today. Go to 720-459-HAIR, 720-459-HAIR, one-day treatment, life-changing results with Advanced Hair. Your new hair is guaranteed to grow. Check out their incredible before and afters and take advantage of their best offer ever. That's 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. Advancedhair.com will continue with your phone calls and texts. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Jeff and Bill show, wrapping up a great conversation with the former chief of staff of the EPA responding to Jared Polis's claims that the sky is literally falling. Worse hail damaging your roofs as a result of greenhouse gases. She's saying it's a bunch of baloney. And even the scientists are walking back a lot of these claims. Let's go to the phone lines. Barney in Denver. Good morning, Barney. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Hey, Jeff and Bill. Hey, Jeff, just shut up for a minute. I think I'm going to make Billy agree with both of us, okay?
Uh-oh. I'm worried.
Sit tight. So keep in mind, this does not count the Louisville fire. That thing was just, you've got 90-mile-an-hour winds. You can't even, like, that's just off the pill. But 5,000 people died in Galveston in a hurricane. I don't know what year it was, 1900. Maybe it was after that, 1930, 20, whatever. Hurricanes have not necessarily gotten worse. You'll go years, you'll go a cycle where you'll have – I lived in North Carolina. I know a little bit about this. You'll have two really good ones sometimes, and then you'll go 3-4 years and you just have the regular Joe Blow hurricane. Keep in mind, I'm speaking for North Carolina. You could not buy property on the coast until 1950-something. That was all government property. So now, Joe Smo decides to build a $3 million house on the coast so the 30-foot wave can gobble his house up and he can get it insured. It just didn't happen. And there was a reason why the government had those lands off limits. Same as your forest. I mean, you're building 900. The reason a forest fire, if it burns, it's not going to cost you one damn dime if there's not a house in there. Let the trees burn to the ground. When you throw $800,000 houses up there in the woods, that's why it costs so much money. But I'd like to also say, going back to Colorado, now, Billy, you pick me apart on this if you can. 30 million years ago, maybe it was 60 million years ago. Well, wait a minute. What does it take for a redwood tree to grow? I'm going to say lots of oxygen, lots of moisture. Am I right on that?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Okay. We used to have them things in Colorado. I think it was 30 million. It might be 60 million years ago. So what's happened in Colorado? We don't have ocean air, and we don't have the oxygen. So, yeah, stuff's changed, but it's gone the opposite way than what they say. We're not burning up in Colorado, or else we'd have redwood trees. I don't know. I think the redwood tree is a good example. Am I wrong or not?
It depends on I'd have to look at their – okay, here's the thing. Is that the climate on Earth changes. That is a constant, okay? So the change is a constant. That always happens. And the argument as far as climate change is how much of it is human-caused, and if so, what percentage, and then what can we do about it? I don't think redwoods would do a good job based on what our climate is here. We would have to have, again, more moisture. We'd have to have something closer to what the coasts are, and some other things. Also, altitude is a problem, necessarily, for them. That's why you have lodgepole pines, everything else up top. And what I want to talk about, with Mandy and where she was talking about it, is that she didn't say climate change doesn't exist. She said, yeah, it exists, but the study they were using to make a lot of these rules overstated the impacts and dangers. She said the new study shows that it is more manageable and that we do have to, but she didn't say it didn't exist. And we can talk about mild changes, and then just for a second, Barney, mild changes, but remember, and again, I understand this is not a fair analogy, but when you talk about mild changes, everything's mild in that water for the frog until the water boils. And that's only the change of a degree. Now, I'm not going to be an alarmist about it, but that change of a degree would be considered mild. But for the frog, at that point, it's life or death. But we are not at that frog boiling point, unlike what Al Gore says and other people. So, yeah, go ahead.
And that makes sense. But like going back to, you brought up Al Gore, I'll bring up John Kerry.
Oh, yeah.
How the hell does those guys, how does them guys making $10, $20 million off of this make the climate any better? And, just going with trucks, because I know trucks.
Yeah.
Before all this emissions crap, there were trucks out there that would get 7 miles to the gallon. They would last 1 million miles. Literally. You started the truck, and there were little things you did. Now you're lucky to get 400,000 or 500,000 out of a truck with all the EPA crap. They've taken the motor. They've plugged it off. They've let the heat stay in the motor. They've recirculated exhaust gas back into the motor. So basically you've made a hunk of crap. It's not reliable. These trucks aren't reliable. Even the diesels in these ambulances are very unreliable. So the bottom line is there does come a point where you got to say, let's fine tune this a little bit, but we don't have to overreact. So I kind of hope that these diesel regulations do kind of go by the wayside. I don't like seeing the dumb kid with his Dodge pickup truck dumping diesel all over the place, raw diesel coming out of his pipe. But the bottom line is they just got to be practical. So
Here's the thing, Barney,
I
think you're right about diesel, man. I think that we did ourselves a huge disservice by basically making diesel and I'm using air quotes, dirty type of an engine when it's actually fairly clean, and the torque on side of those is absolutely amazing. Now, here's the thing. You were talking about, mileage on some of those big engines being 1 million or so. I would argue that based on consumerism, regardless of EPA rules, some of those things would be wound down. And what I mean by that is if we go back to the 80s, that washer and dryer and dishwasher you had in your house would go for decades. You buy one today, the lifespan is 7 years. So I think that automakers would have done the same thing. The idea of building a car that lasts for 1 million miles, we can't sell someone a car every 30 years. We got to sell them a car every 8 years.
Exactly. You're right. Anyway.
Hey, thanks, Barney. Have a great day, man. It was good to hear from you.
Barney, sure appreciate it. And as a diesel truck owner, I love adding Blue Def every time I have to fill up my truck. Some EPA.
Yeah, that is a pain. That is
nut
a pain.
job added that to that requirement. All right, we'll continue. We'll get to the phone calls. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Hey, Aaron in Denver is next. This is News Talk 710 KNUS.
Wake up, Denver. There's no better place to start your morning than IHOP, where the pancakes are fluffy, the coffee is hot, and the smiles are endless. Wednesday, August 27th, join Jeff and Bill as they broadcast their show live from IHOP at 1595 South Colorado Boulevard in Denver. You're officially invited to be part of the excitement. Come grab your favorite breakfast and watch the Jeff and Bill Show in action from 6 to 10 a.m. Don't forget to try the special Jeff and Bill breakfast. Pancakes, any style eggs, and crispy bacon, all for just $7.10. It's a deal as good as their hot takes. All they need is you. Bring your appetite, bring your friends, and kick off your day with great food and great conversation. See you Wednesday, August 27th at IHOP.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Phone lines lighting up here. We're talking Jared Polis, EPA. We just heard from the chief of staff from the EPA saying that Jared Polis says sky is falling. Concerns are a little extreme. Let's go to the phone lines. Aaron, Denver. Good morning, Aaron. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Well, Polis is just a dumb donkey like they all in this state. It's so ridiculous. The rhetoric when it comes to so-called climate change is just, of course, off the chain and just ridiculous. You got the United Nations. Well, the polar caps are melting. Oh my, we're gone. We're doomed. The judges, United Nations. The crisis, the number one thing affecting human beings on planet. And of course, that's just a pile of F. The Earth has been around 4.5 billion years, according to the scientists out there. And the Earth, as a result, the climate has always been changing. When the dinosaurs were dominating the planet, we were not here, but they were completely dominating the planet. They had the whole planet to themselves, and eventually, according to them, a big old asteroid hit the Earth and, of course, completely changed the environment. And as a result, the dinosaurs were completely wiped out and extinct.
Most of them. We still have a few left over.
Well, except for the birds.
Yeah, birds, crocodiles.
They're delicious.
Yeah, some sharks, things like that. Yeah, here's the thing, Aaron. What I want to ask you about is, you talked about the idea of climate change being BS, but even Mandy Gunasekera, EPA chief of staff, former EPA chief of staff, said that climate change exists. That the new study said the changes are mild and manageable. So does climate change exist, or do you still hold that it's a bunch of BS? Because the former chief of staff for the EPA says it exists. It's just not as scary as Al Gore told us it was.
Well, the way I look at it, climate change has always been around. You know, I just don't like the constant getting beaten in the head by the morons in the media. They're out there. The far left, the Al Gores of the world, beating me constantly in the head, thinking that, because it's flooding in New York City, it's flooding the subways in New York City, that it's the doom and gloom. We're all going to die tomorrow. Oh, you got this heat dome going on in New York City, and people are suffer from the heat. Well, they suffering because of the humidity in that part of the country. You morons. I mean, we have heat in the state of Colorado, but thank goodness we don't have the humidity there in those parts of the states. So, I mean, yes, the climate has always been changing, but I'm getting tired of being constantly beat in the head that we're all gonna die. You and I, us, all gonna kick the bucket because of the extreme heat. We got to be net zero by 2040 or net zero by 2050. And if we're not, humanity, we're all gonna die. You know, I'm like, well, we're all gonna die, but we're not gonna die because of climate change, so-called climate change. Bill?
I don't know, Aaron, because if we go back to the examples of climate change, as you accurately said, it was climate change that killed the dinosaurs. Now, granted, that was based on the result of a giant meteor hitting the planet. And the other thing that we've seen is based on that heat dome. And unfortunately, can't get to the phone calls because we're running out of time. The heat dome, one thing that heat does do, you're right about the humidity, but it does trap more water inside of the clouds. And so what happens then is you end up with those larger floods and those larger rain events simply because of the higher temperatures and the higher humidity, because that's how science works. The higher heat holds more moisture inside the clouds. They travel further and they dump it. That's why you're getting some of these rain events. Again, yeah.
Well, Aaron, appreciate the call. Thanks so much. It's been a really fun show. Lots of debate.
Yeah,
if you missed any of it, go to 710KNUS to download the podcast. You've been listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is 710KNUS.